Okay, how did the American Revolution even begin? The answer is surprisingly Ohio. So after France and England started to colonize the New World, they had some border issues, aka they both claimed Ohio. As a Michigander myself, I don't know why nations would want Ohio, but apparently it was because of the Ohio Valley and it was really good farmland. Soon France, who for some reason wanted to keep Ohio, built forts in the area, which made the British mad and ordered that they leave. And after they did not leave, they sent George Washington and some Indian allies to fight some French. Only those French turned out to be not actual soldiers but armed mailmen. And it did not help that their leader was tomahawked in the head. He made a terrible fort near modern-day Pittsburgh, and the French sent terms of surrender that Washington could not understand that would lead to him confessing to the murder of those officers. But what matters is that these actions began the French and Indian War, a 9-year-long conflict which began the 7 Years' War, that were almost the same conflict. By the way, the 7 Years' War was 7 years, but the French and Indian War was 9. But it was happening at the same time, which makes memers mix them up and create this meme. But in reality, the 7 Years' War was really 7 years. Anyway, the 7 Years' War would lead to the French losing the war and a bunch of land given to the British. Now, the British did not want to fight more wars in the area because they had like 50 million pounds in debt. So the British let the Indians in the land only, except for the occasional hunter or Boonesboro. Obviously, the Americans weren't happy as they gained 11,000 dead bodies and like 0 land except for Canada, which no one went to because everyone was French. But there's no time for that because there's that 50 million pound debt does not pay itself. So Britain began taxing the colonists, starting with the Sugar Act, which meant that the colonists would have to buy sugar from no other nation but Britain, and they also had to pay taxes for sugar. Then came the Stamp Act, which gave every document of importance a tax if stamped. Now I know what you're thinking, but the British got taxed like 20 times more, and you're right. But would you like to punch yourself in the face or be punched in the face? First of all, why in the world would you punch yourself in the face? Well, here's what was happening. While Britain had British people in the Parliament who could punch themselves in the face with taxes, there were no American representatives to decide where to punch themselves in the face or not. So the Americans rioted, boycotted, and hated whoever supported the taxes. After all this, the British had to remove the taxes, but the British came back saying, hey, we still need money, and sent the Townshend Act, showing taxes for glass, oil, and most importantly, tea. Soon after some boycotts and smuggling tea from the Dutch, the British removed all the taxes except for the tea. Also, 1,000 soldiers were sent to Boston, and the colonists had to pay for them. After this, protesters began to harass a soldier protecting the customs house. More soldiers and protesters came to the streets. As the soldiers tried to de-escalate the situation, the protesters dared to fire. And with all the confusion and the noise, the British opened fire. The Boston Massacre would become a rallying cry for any patriots. In 1773, the Sons of Liberty planned to dress up as Indians and threw tea off of a ship in Boston Harbor. Over 10,000 pounds of tea from the East India Company was lost, which was even more of a hit on British business. It cost about $1 million in today's money. This led to the British to pass the Intolerable Acts, which made the General Assembly closed in Boston, and 3,000 more troops went to Boston. After this, the First Continental Congress was called and had lots of leaders of the Revolution, such as George Washington, John Adams, Samuel Adams, and that give me liberty or give me death guy. After politely asking the British to stop, hint it did not work, Minutemen across the country got ready for rebellion. Soon 600 men sent by Thomas Gage began to march on Concord for rebel weapons. During this, Paul Revere warned the Minutemen about the coming armies, and about 400 militiamen met them at Lexington. After a bunch of shouting between the two sides, one side shot first. The shout around the world began the American Revolution, and is the end of this video. But if you are an Englishman who wants a glorious British Empire once again, you can blame Ohio for letting it fall in the first place.